Hello, and welcome to the Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today I'm welcoming all the way from Florida, where it's Thursday evening for you, but I'm welcoming to the show Dr. Romella Janene. Welcome to the show, Romella.
Thank you so much for having me, Bea. I appreciate being here.
No, thank you. And it's great that you have decided to stay up because I know it's quite late in Florida and, the ability to have a chat with you at this time of the evening. So I do truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We've got quite the story to talk about today, Romella. And before I introduce what you're doing now, I want to start this time with when you booked in for the podcast and I asked you what was one unique insight or lived experience when it came to life, leadership and or business. You said to me, finding the path to your purpose is often volatile. From 3-2-1 circle to lucid pattern and AI in between. And I was like, wow, 3-2-1 circle, lucid pattern, and AI in between. I was like, okay, this is going to be quite the fascinating conversation. And I'm going to get you to talk all about that. But let's firstly tell everyone what you're up to now. So you're the founder of Lucid Pattern, which is a research-driven consultancy launched in November of 2025.
Very
And
recent.
very recent. It's a baby, like it's literally a couple of months old, if that. And it focuses on responsible AI integration and organizational clarity. And you previously founded 3-2-1 Circle. You have held US patent, and I won't go through all the numbers, but you've held a US patent for an AI enhanced ledger computing system. And your background includes innovation work with US federal data and transportation initiatives.
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey.
Well, by training, I'm an industrial and organizational psychologist who also happens to have a bachelor's degree in economics and decided to do that combination before behavioral economics was a thing. So kind of saw that coming, saw that coming. And I think that's maybe the story. Like I've been maybe ahead of the curve and sometimes too far ahead to really kind of leverage and take advantage of, everything that has come later. So you mentioned, the patent. I actually started that process in 2017.
Really?
And yes, it takes a while to get a patent, utility patent for AI.
Yeah.
Basically doing a novel ledger type of technology, not blockchain, because there's no external validators, really in virtual machine environments, intended to really kind of know who your customer really truly is by authentication.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits of that method is it uses a less electricity once it's
Yeah,
fully
right.
implemented. Yeah, yeah. So in a nutshell, that's kind of a high level what the patent is. I've been involved in internet governance and kind of slowed down lately because of broader forces within, the world right now where there's not really a lot going on cooperatively in such spaces. But um, again, going back to 2017, I was involved in Internet Governance Forum, which is a UN body, talking about the best way to sort of manage interoperability, privacy issues, all of the things that people are concerned about. And I proposed a trust panel. I believe it was in 2019. Um, so even back then, it's like I knew trust was an issue. It's like the whole
Yes.
idea of knowing who you're dealing with, why you're dealing with them, what are they going to do with what your interactions are, has been something that was just really obvious to me. Um, and it kind of grew out of just wanting to stop being a victim of data breaches. That's really kind of what got me into sort of looking at all of this. Some of the biggest data breaches I had been a victim of. Um, and it's just, was sort of what sparked it. But so it's kind of fast forwarding my leadership journey. I have held several leadership roles in the federal government, United States federal government, and most recently, there's a lot of feedback, but I'm sorry, I hope you can hear me.
No, I can hear the feedback. I was thinking exactly the same thing, and I can't work out whether it's your computer or my computer.
It might be mine, but hopefully, it seems like it's okay now.
Yeah.
Um, Apologies for whoever's
Yeah, that's
watching
okay.
this.
Because I'm thinking, I thought it was mine. It sounds like it's taking off, but that's okay. It's like I can hear it, but it's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like, I guess, ambient white noise, you know? We're calming everyone down.
So true. I don't know if it's, yeah, totally, right? It's fine. You're about to go to bed, so you need the white noise. I'm halfway through my Friday, so I'm exactly the same. I'm like,
Yeah, it's still a little early. It's about, let's see, about 8:30 here, so
oh,
it's not
sorry,
too
there you
bad.
go. Yeah,
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 yeah, that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But most recently, and this is like the part of the story where it's like your path isn't always what you think it's gonna be.
No,
So I actually started 321 Circle as a side hustle when I was working at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission doing research using lots of different types of data, working on data governance type issues. One of the things that I worked on while I was at the EEOC was the tabulation for, how many people work in a particular location, particular job title, and spearheaded that as an interagency effort to really get the tabulation available on data.census.gov.
right.
So, being heavily involved in data, but it was started as a side hustle. And then 321 Circle was around for a long time and it never really kind of got launched. And it was one of those things where lots of interest, built it out, people loved it. They couldn't see the market for it. And I wasn't, frankly, good enough to try and explain what the market was to the people who were in the decision making process to be able to make that decision. But it's funny, now that I've let it go, people are kind of where I was with it. So I'm now starting to see other businesses pop up that are similar
Yes.
to what 321 Circle was. And so essentially, 321 Circle was intended to be a mix of a place for employees to come together, share information with each other as it relates to, wanting to do professional development or self improvement, basically creating circles where you can choose who you want to circle with for particular things. So if you want to like get with people who are trying to learn Power BI, you join that circle, but you could also join a circle for people who want to go out, on Fridays as a social get together, and maybe another circle for people who want to meditate on Mondays. So it was really just kind of that, but built into it was artificial intelligence. So
Right.
allowing people to, kind of do their planning for their different career development. That's everywhere. Everyone's got some sort of AI planning app. And it's even
Yeah,
like, I feel
absolutely.
sorry for companies that are trying to actually have that as a business because the LLM model providers are looking for ways to get revenue, so they're starting to kind of go into these other little niches. So I don't think they're really going to be viable because I think,
No.
the model providers are going into that space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's interesting how you said at the very beginning of the podcast that you've always been ahead of your time. You've always been this, kind of almost like not predicted, but like you're very future forward thinking. And
Yeah.
then you had 321 Circle, and it was clearly
It dragged
trailblazing.
on long enough, and it came out of it went through a couple of iterations. I started it during COVID. And it was really just, me and my now ex-husband moved to Arizona and we didn't know a soul. It was just the two of us. And the lockdown started and it was like, feeling really kind of disconnected. And it was from mental health sort of standpoint. It's like, I'm feeling disconnected. We're not able to go anywhere. This is the time where we're like hoarding, toilet paper and didn't know if we would have gas and, no flights,
Yeah.
like, and it was just, me and him. It's like, we're shut in. So like, there's got to be a way to try to connect. And so just that was sort of the birth of it, of the idea. Um, but yeah, it's like along the way, there was like working this other track of like advancing in the day job and actually eventually switching organizations and going to the United States Forest Service, where most recently I was head of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and was managing a team of, I think there were 8 of us, and my budget was over, 10 million annually. Um, and the thing about it was, you know, change of administrations, change of
Yes.
focus. kind of getting forked. I call it getting forked because,
Yeah, I've never heard that term, getting forked. Yes.
well, I use that on purpose because, you know, Elon Musk had joined the government, the United States government for a while and was doing things. And when he took over Twitter and it became X, he basically, presented employees at X with, they get on board or, take the fork in the road.
Yeah.
So when he came to the federal government, we got essentially the same sort of options. I say I got forked, but it ended up being a good thing. I can see where needing to kind of it's like you've got one hand on one branch and you're trying to reach for the other. And you just can't necessarily maybe reach it because, you got this good thing, this very stable,
Yes.
good paying job, tremendous benefits, all of those things. And you don't want to necessarily so getting forward
But you were
forced me to
almost
take that leap.
forced. You were almost forced, weren't you, in terms of
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you call that out because, like, coming back to this finding the path to your purpose, and you had this side hustle, if you like, 321 circle, sorry. You've got this full-time job. You called out earlier in the discussion that, you made out as if you couldn't sell it, but I feel like it was probably potentially not that you couldn't sell it because you absolutely knew about your product and your, this 321 circle. And now you're seeing other businesses coming out now with, the same sort of model, etc. But I think when you have, like you say, you're hanging on one branch here and you're hanging on another branch here, how can you be fully doing
You
what you're meant
can't.
to be doing? You can't. So of course something is going to not, what's the word I'm looking for, launch, if you like, if you're in between two branches. And I've done that myself. And it was only like probably in the last 12 months of my own business that I
Mm.
was like, I'm still dabbling in my old world of advertising and I'm doing more advertising work in my business, but I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing with this business. So do I take the leap of faith and know that it's going to result in, dropping revenue
Changes in
coming in
income.
for
Yeah.
a period of time
Yeah.
to then get the foundations in order, build out the business, build out the product, build out the model for it to then properly take off, because you're not doing yourself a service and you're not doing the business or the product a service either, right? And that sounds like exactly where you were at. But we're always in this hurry to try and get to, or we're holding
Yes.
on for dear life
Yes.
because we're like, you know,
Yes. And I think the way that you laid it out is brilliant because that's exactly kind of, my arc. It's like I just started this in November. So the stages of like, okay, now we're burying 321 circle. It was a good idea. Some other things popped up where I think it started to look like maybe a feature of other things and some concerns with, hearing some very bad stories with people, maybe misusing the technology and it having dire consequences for those users. And just, was really just wanting to kind of refocus. Like this was intended to be kind of like an EAP light, an employee assistance program augmentation, but
mm-hmm.
also employee professional development, platform. And it could do a lot of different things depending upon how the organization wanted to configure. But I did not feel comfortable with the possibility of, people being at work and trying to do, not safe for work chats, and then having to go tell the employer your employee did that. Or, the employee maybe, again, using the agent in a way where they're trying to figure out how to, harm themselves or worse yet, harm someone else. Those were
Mm.
things that started to pop up, and I'm like, I don't want to take that on, so let me bury that. And so, officially, dissolved in October and launched Lucid Pattern in November. And I'm at the point of, getting past sort of the standing up, what, that haven't started a business don't understand. It takes time and you're working every day to like stand up the business before you even get to, like you said, the product and then trying to sell the product. It's like there's those steps in between. And
Huge steps, and they're the biggest steps, and they take the longest, those steps. I think that as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and you like me, top of your game in a previous world. you go for the top of your game and you're almost back down to the bottom again. And you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
here I am, I'm at baseline and I need to be back up here. So then you start going, do this, do this, do this. And then you're like, I can't do it all. This is now I don't have all the infrastructure and the people and the support around me like I did.
Resources.
The resources, you're doing it all.
Yeah.
You're putting all your own money into this. You're potentially bootstrapping. I'm bootstrapping my business
Yeah.
at this point in time. And what people don't talk enough about, and hence why like loving these conversations, is that, when you go onto social media, it's like, this is amazing, that's amazing. It's like, is it really? Like, because I'm here two
Right?
years going,
Who's telling the truth?
who's telling the truth? Back to truth, back to trust, back to truth.
Yeah.
Like, who is telling the truth? Because you kind of go, like, I'm 2 years in and I'm still working it out. And this comes back
Yeah.
to purpose, right? Purpose of a business, purpose of the individual or the leader, if you like. A business may take its time to find its purpose as well. Like,
Right.
you think that it's going one way and then the next thing it's going, no, it's doing this way. And like, that's why I love the name Lucid Pattern. And it's the same like for me with Formless, because
I
we're
do like that.
continuously shaping and reshaping. And
Yeah.
lucid says to me, lucid, like, and then,
Yeah, I mean, the tagline is the blueprint of alignment. That's what I kind of settled on as sort of the North Star right now. It's really just trying to know where I'm going and walking the path that is going to get me there and be in alignment with my true self, with the
Mm.
with my skills, and being able to offer that sort of synergy to other people through strategy. One of the things that businesses that I've seen up close is there's a rush to try and get something done, but we don't know why we're doing it, right?
So
So
true.
how can it succeed? What goals is it aligned with for you
Yeah.
to rush and do this thing? And it's funny because I'm seeing this with AI.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a natural, opportunity. It's like so many studies have come out saying, organizations are, thinking about AI or wanting to use AI, and they're not even really certain like what problem it's supposed to solve. How does it fit into your strategic plan? Where are you as an organization going without the AI? And
Yeah.
how can the AI help you do that better? Because right now I think we're sort of in a place where um, there's everything is looking like a nail and AI is the hammer. It's like,
It's so true. That's a really great analogy. So what you're effectively saying to me is that, when it comes to lucid pattern and alignment as your North Star, you're aligning human business leaders with AI is what you're talking about here. So understanding that you need to be clear as a business or as a leader where you're heading without looking at AI to solve it all. And it's like,
right.
how does it come together? Because I've been talking a lot about AI and human collaboration, but this is beyond collaboration. Collaboration is more like executional, if you like. You're sitting up here, really, aren't you? In a way,
Yeah.
like in terms of let's align here, so then we can collaborate in a way that is aligned to strategy, aligned to goals,
Right.
etc.
Well,
I
I
love
mean,
it.
well, thank you. I mean, it's hard to say we're going to use AI as a thought partner, and you don't really know like what are the activities are that you want that, partnering to take place. And, how does that relate to your overall process? People are talking about they're having a hard time scaling AI. Well, is your process good? You're going to try to throw the AI into it and you've got a bad process. You're just going to magnify that,
Mm.
fail faster and deeper.
So what you're saying, when you go into businesses and when you're consulting, like in terms of that, is that where you start? You start obviously with
I
like,
am actually okay. So it's funny. It's like there's a couple of different things that Lucid can do, right? There is the strategy piece, which I'm very excited about. But for me, it's like, you can't boil the ocean. And so when you're going out doing business development, like where do you see the low hanging fruit? And for
yeah,
me, I see AI training, because organizations saying, employees use it, use it, use it, use it, but not everybody knows how to use it effectively. It's like, okay, you may have, you know, um, Bing on your phone or Chat GPT on your phone or Gemini on your phone and you're using it to try and, get questions answered. That's very different than trying to use it to like get work done meaningfully and then working out like the ethical issues around that. At what point do you say, I did this with the assistance of the AI, or is it, so much where it's like really the AI kind of did it and I'm fact checking it? Like those are
Yeah.
sorts of things that people need to really be trained to look at and to consider when they're working with the AI
Mm,
beyond
mm,
just, prompt engineering course, which is
yeah.
important, but the ethical considerations about using AI responsibly and doing training around those things.
Yeah, it's incredible. I really love it, and I really admire you for taking it on. So tell us about then the first couple of months. Like, what's that been like for you?
It's been infrastructure. It's been all of the boring things before you really can feel like, "Hey, I can go start talking to people." I mean, literally, yesterday I had my first, prospect meeting where I did my little dog and pony show and said, "Here's the AI course we can offer you." Or the suite of options, you want to do custom, we can do custom. Here's the different types of categories. That was my first, pitch yesterday. And um, not really certain how it's going to go. The organizations like to kind of play our pockets aren't that deep. So I don't know if it's really maybe worth me trying to chase this particular client
Yeah.
down. We'll see. But that's another thing that you kind of have to resist, I think. It's like, and I'm still working through this because on the one hand, this particular, client might be a good sort of like first start saying, "Hey, I'm working
Case
with
study.
them." Yeah, exactly, case study. But on the other hand, it's like your time has value, right? And so it's like at what point do you kind of do something to just kind of say, "Hey, I've got this one," versus, let me let that fly past.
Yeah.
And I actually did have to let something fly past previously because it was just so far off, the expectation of what would be produced. And so, I'm calling the one yesterday the first one because that's the one I went to go get. The one that I let fly kind of came to me. I mean, we, went back and forth a little bit, and they wanted me to do a series of videos, short little sound bites talking about how their product was useful for certain, research topics. So I would do like these little mini informational type segments, like psychological safety in the workplace, talking about that. And then they would basically, use that in there. So it was more sort of a research potential client as opposed to like, AI training or like AI strategy. But it was just so far apart that it didn't make sense. And so to let that go was kind of scary a little bit, but it's like, no, I'm worth more than what they're talking
Yeah, I was
about.
about to say worth comes up for me, feeling empowered because I think as women again, we tend to go, oh, okay, I'll just do it. Like, and I think also what you're calling out here is, well, I know is that, when you're starting a business and you've gone like from the big salary and then you go into like, no income necessarily when you're building this infrastructure and the foundations, it's quite when that low hanging fruit, that really low hanging fruit is coming at you, we can either choose to. It comes back to alignment and misalignment, right?
Yes.
If you had taken
Yes.
it on, it would have detracted you from everything you were doing. You would have become misaligned in yourself. The business would have been out of alignment. And so for me, it's that's having the courage and being brave enough to go, this isn't for us. This isn't for me. Is this actually going to keep me on purpose? Is this going to keep me in
Right.
alignment? Is it going to keep me on my North Star? I had to learn that the hard way. And that was like, I'd left my corporate world, I'd left my big role, but I was still doing all this advertising work because it was safe and it felt safe. And then it was
Right.
like, oh, actually, what am I doing? I'm feeling unfulfilled. It's not where I want to be. So it's that ability to know that we're worth more. Time is precious. All of that. I think that us women in particular, we need to really sense check ourselves because
I agree. I
men would
agree.
just be like, "That's ridiculous. This is 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever.
Right.
Take it or leave it. I'm walking away." Whereas we're
Right.
like,
But it's funny finding that, tapping into, the masculine energy that we all kind of have in
Yeah.
us. Yeah, I'm gonna let that one go because it really, and it's funny because it got to a point in the negotiations that I didn't trust him. And so I actually ended up blocking him on LinkedIn because I just like, I don't want I don't want this person, trying to dig around in my contacts to try and leapfrog over me to find someone that I might be connected to that would fulfill their need. It's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that either because the way that it happened was we agreed that we weren't going to work together and then came the LinkedIn invite and I was like,
Yeah,
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 no, we're not connecting. We're
yeah.
not going to do
Good on
that.
you. Good on you for blocking. Romella, I've got a couple of more questions for you. You're focused on responsible AI integration and, research driven consultancy, and you brought up AI training before as a low hanging fruit. Your business model and what you're building from an infrastructure and foundation perspective is you've got AI training in there, but it's you're taking it back up the top of the funnel in terms of strategy, human, the integration, how it's all
Right.
all done properly. There's a lot of AI training businesses out there at the moment. And if I think about AI training and exactly what you're talking about in terms of, when businesses or leaders are looking for it without having a full picture of, well, actually, hang on, what's actually going on in the business here? You know, AI will eventually become like the internet and like
Yes.
when the internet first came out, when emails first came out, when the mobile phone first came out. I mean, we're in a huge revolution right now, and it'll be quite amazing what AI can do in the next 12, 24 months. But business wise, how long does AI training last for? Like before we actually we adopt it and it's like everyone knows how to use it. So have you
Yeah, no,
thought of that
it's
part?
not.
Yeah.
No,
Mm.
I think there's a couple of things there. It's like, so I think there will always be new tools. Will I always want to be the one that's teaching the technical stuff?
Yeah.
No. I think that there are those pre-existing tech, training companies who are better suited to do that long term. And then I think in terms of like, the sort of rinse, wash, repeat type, compliance training aspect of it, that's done every year. Do I want to be involved in that? No. So this is just sort of like low hanging fruit in the sense of maybe it's something that can open the door so I can talk about the other things.
Yeah. That's very cool.
So that's the way that I'm kind of thinking about it. But, we'll see if that strategy actually works, because it could be that, organizations are just kind of siloing and not aware that they're doing it, where it's like, okay, let's just get our employees trained. There's these existing providers here, this prompt engineering course, is this much month. Okay, everybody in this unit go this month and the next unit and on and on and on. I'm not going to win against that,
No.
and that's okay. At some point, this is a thing that people need to kind of be aware of, that if you're starting a business, you have to have in your mind your exit and be willing to kind of execute your exit, which takes us back to like 3, 2, 1 circle. It's like that thing needed to be, shot and put to bed long before I finally did it. But
Yeah.
this is an example of listening to the wrong people who were encouraging me,
Keep
and that's,
going.
yeah, yeah, like keep going, keep going. It's a great idea. Oh, that's fabulous. Spending money marketing it and doing all of these things, maybe too soon. But it's like when people are telling you, hey, keep going, keep going, keep going, but they're not willing to use it in their organization or not willing to write a check for you, you can't listen to them. And that's one of the
No.
things that I had learned. I,
Yeah. And that's the volatility, right? When you talk about
yeah,
finding the path to your purpose is
yeah.
often volatile because you've got that volatility. How did you come up with the brand name Lucid Pattern?
I think I'm really good at coming up with creative names. I want it there to be, okay, well, because AI is really like numbers based, right? there's like a pattern amongst the numbers that lead to, an understanding. So that's kind of, the genesis of it loosely.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it because I was presenting to Melbourne Business School the other night, and I was talking around how AI finds the patterns and exactly what you're talking about, but then humans have to extrapolate the meaning behind it,
Yes.
and that's exactly like we can't do everything, and so I do love that, lucid patterns and I go into hallucination because quite often, AI
Yes.
can have those hallucinations. So yeah, being able to then pull out, well, hang on a second, is that true? Is it not true? Coming back to that truth and
I'm
trust piece.
so glad you brought that up because, the whole thing of wanting to use the AI as a hammer ignores the fact that we still are talking about math, We're talking about probabilities, and we're never going to have, 100% prediction on anything.
No.
So, people wanting it to be, 100% accurate don't understand that what it is, it's never going to be that. And so, because inherently there is that chance, no matter how small, of it being wrong, you're going to need people who have deep knowledge in particular areas so that they know when something looks off. I mean, I think the future of education, the future of work are really kind of converging in this moment where the AI is reshaping, what needs to be taught in the schools, in the universities. But to say that there's not going to be needed is misleading. Like I'll give a very sort of esoteric example. Let's say you work at a museum, right? And you are, a curator of some collection and a piece comes in and you're not really certain what it is, right?
Mm.
You do a picture and you scan it, or whatever, and give it to the AI. And the AI says, well, I think it's this. And maybe there's even some glyphs on it. So you're like, the AI says, I think it means this. You still want that archaeologist.
100% you do.
to
100%. Yeah,
talk
it's so
about
true.
that.
Yeah,
You still want
yeah.
that archaeologist. You want them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's high
Absolutely.
stakes, all day. So I think it's those types of things where the outcomes really are important. You're going to need that deep expertise. And so the question is, how do you train people to develop that level of expertise when the entry level's not there?
Mm, mm.
That's the thing that it's going to be painful as we figure that out. And that's a whole nother conversation we could
No, I was
have.
about to say we'll have to have a part two of the podcast, and I'd love to talk to you again in 6 to 12 months time when Lucid Pattern, you're such in its infancy, and I know when in my first 2 months I was like, and even like I say now, it's still evolving, and coming back to your purpose and back to alignment. You'll
Yeah.
have those moments, no doubt, where things will be misaligned, or I say survival mode, and it's like, how do you ensure that you get back to that awareness of this isn't the way it should be, so let's come over here, but also having the
Yeah.
ability to allow the business to and yourself to continue to shape and reshape and evolve. I think that's exciting, and I can't wait to hear and see
Me
how
too.
the business does evolve. What's your like in terms of plans for Lucid Patterns? So you're at the moment you had your first prospecting client yesterday. You've got infrastructure on the go. Will you be doing an official launch, or is it going to be softly, softly, slowly, slowly? Like, what's your plans?
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of the two where I actually do plan to just kind of, poke out some feelers and, try and find the prospects using, the tools we have available to try and find the good prospects. AI tools, oddly enough, right? Use Apollo to try and find the leads, and work it that
Yeah.
way. But then, I am going to do, a more sort of formal launch and actually thought about doing a press release
Oh, amazing. I love
and
it.
then thought about doing that instead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
exciting. And so then, Romella, final question for you for today. What would you say to what would be a bit of advice you would give anyone who was, I guess, on their way, like they knew that they were on, in search mode for their purpose? and they were going through quite a volatile period. What would be
Yeah.
the advice?
So I think there's a couple of pieces of advice. Be willing to take a risk on yourself. People are going to try and tell you, and I had random people telling me, oh, there's this job over here. You should go
Yeah,
apply and be
yeah,
perfect. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take a risk on myself now, and not, try to run for cover at this point and,
no,
go get a job somewhere and, maybe be fully engaged and happy for a year. Be careful who you take advice from. Had success in terms of starting a business and selling it for a boatload of money. And it was a tech company that the person built and sold. Right. So it's sort of like, you want to give that person, the credibility of that, because they've done it.
absolutely, yes.
Which brings me to the last thing, which is, maybe be a keeper of your own counsel and not really talk
Oh, I love that.
to people about, everything. Like, I'm not saying be completely secretive, but people don't need to know your
Keeper of your own counsel, like block out that white noise. We've got good white noise happening right now, but you can have, bad white noise as well.
right. Exactly.
Romella, how do we find out more about Lucid Pattern, and how do we find out more about you, knowing that you are so early in the piece with the business?
Well, there is lucidpattern.com. So please, feel free to check
Check
out
it
the
out.
website. That was one of the pieces of infrastructure that needed to get built out, and it's there. Ways to
Congratulations.
contact me through there. Perfect. But then also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Romella Janene on LinkedIn. Love to
Amazing.
talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
really excited to see how and you evolve and how your business evolves and how it continues to chase that North Star, if you like, in terms of alignment, because we need more of it. And we need people like you, in business that are really just reminding everyone around this whole piece of, AI and the human and responsible integration, and I'm gonna start calling it AI and human alignment. There's collaboration, but it's exactly what you're talking about. So I love it.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
can't wait to see all your success. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on the Be Formless
Thank you
Flow
for
Driven CEO
appreciate it.
Showcast. Okay, I'll let you get to the rest of your evening. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.